Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here with Drip and Farm for Property, where we don't trust, we verify, and operate with integrity and transparency. Today we're going to be breaking down a clip from Marc Andreessen on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about debanking and how Bitcoin is financial freedom and how you need to be aware of the games that governments and banks play with your money. So stay tuned.
Every minute you wait, Bitcoin climbs higher. The difference between success and regret? Taking action now. At Drip2BTC, you get more than just Bitcoin. You get growth, security, and peace of mind. Buy Bitcoin, deposit it, and watch your future transform. No risk, no reward. Start earning at Drip2BTC.com.
All right, this video, or this clip, I should say, from the podcast, about 5 days old, and a lot of people were unaware this was taking place. This was definitely a lot of talking points during the last cycle, hearing about Choke Point 2.0, but apparently it kind of passed by the wayside. And I'm going to use Marc Andreessen to give you guys some context on that, and I can even talk about some issues that I've had, not quite this extreme, but seeing similar cases just on a smaller scale. So let's first just jump into this clip.
Anybody who tries to do anything new in financial services. And
can you give me an example?
Well, like I said, debanking. This is where a lot of the debanking comes from, is these agencies. So debanking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system.
Like they did to Kanye.
Exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has been debanked.
Really?
We had an employee who
for what?
For having the wrong politics, for saying unacceptable things. Under current banking regulations, here's a great thing. Under current banking regulations, after all the reforms of the last 20 years, there's now a category called a politically exposed person. And if you are a PEP, you are required by financial regulators to kick them off of to kick them out of your bank. You're not allowed.
But what if you're politically on the left?
Well, that's fine.
No,
because they're not politically exposed.
So no one on the left gets debanked.
No, I have not heard of a single instance of anybody on the left getting debanked.
Can you tell me what the person that you know did? What they said that got them debanked?
Oh well, I mean, David Horowitz is a right wing. He's pro-Trump. I mean, he said all kinds of things. He's been very anti-Islamic terrorism. He's been very worried about migration, all these things.
And they debanked him for that.
Yeah, they debanked it. So you get kicked out of your bank account. You get kicked out of you can't do credit card transactions. By the way, you can't.
How is that legal?
Well, exactly. So this is the thing, and then you go into this thing of like, well, this is where the government and the companies get intertwined. Back to your fascism point, which is. There's a constitutional amendment that says the government can't restrict your speech, but there's no constitutional amendment that says the government can't debank you, right? And so if they can't do the one thing, they do the other thing, and then they don't have to debank you. They just have to put pressure on the private company banks to do it. And then the private company banks do it because they're expected to. But the government gets to say, we didn't do it. It was the private company that did it. And of course, JP Morgan can decide who they want to have as customers, of course, right? Because they're a private company. And so it's this sleight of hand that happens. So it's basically, it's a privatized sanctions regime that lets bureaucrats do to American citizens the same thing that we do to Iran.
Whoa.
Kick you out of the financial system. And so this has been happening to all the crypto entrepreneurs in the last 4 years. This has been happening to a lot of the fintech entrepreneurs, anybody trying to start any kind of new banking service, because they're trying to.
So let's unpack that. First, he talked about getting debanked, and by definition, debanking, also known as de-risking, is when a bank closes or restricts a customer's account because the bank believes the customer poses a financial, legal, regulatory, or reputational risk. That's all just a word salad of BS, because if de-risking was really what they were trying to do, they'd stop leveraging our money and making money out of thin air so that they don't go broke, basically. But as he mentioned, they have this term called a politically exposed person, and this is from the Financial Actions Task Force. I think that's what FATF stands for. I can't remember. A politically exposed person is an individual who is or has been entrusted with a prominent function. Many PEPs hold positions that can be abused for the purpose of laundering illicit funds or other predicate offenses such as corruption or bribery. But as he mentioned, this can literally be labeled to anyone. This is pretty much what happened to the truckers during the protests, the COVID vaccines in Canada, where they froze their bank accounts. And they weren't politically exposed. They were literally just your normal everyday blue collar worker that was opposing their government. And this has happened on multiple different fronts, but like he mentioned here, primarily in Choke Point 2.0, it was for banks, and he mentioned JP Morgan. And there's a thread here on X where this individual and other people were pointing out he said that after 7 years of banking, they were debanked with JP Morgan as well. And he shows this letter. And all it does is just basically say, hey, we're closing your account. They don't have to give you any reasons why or any way for you to kind of rebut this or fight back. And there's multiple people, this person over here with TD Bank doing the same thing. And as I mentioned, I kind of have a similar story. It wasn't because of this with Choke Point 2.0 or even 1.0. But when I first got out here to Cambodia, I was running online e-commerce. And I was going through, I had a Bank of America account using Stripe, all that good stuff. And my Stripe account would get flagged because I was using I was coming from an IP address in Cambodia. That's where I was living. And even Facebook would flag my account. And I would have to send in my ID, the registration, the documents for my LLC, all this stuff was verified, like all the information to validate it was me. They would open the account back up and then flag it again like 2-3 months later. And eventually that led to, due to the multiple flags, I guess you could say, to actually closing the account. And there's no one to talk to. It's all automated. And yeah, I lost that ability to transact. And then trying to get around it using the VPN, it still gets flagged, all sorts of stuff. It was just a big pain in the ass. I think it's fixed now, but that was Stripe and PayPal. And they just basically didn't want to allow any authorizations through Cambodia, basically is what I found out. And so this is just on a much, much larger scale, but the point is all the same. It's that the banks control the ebb and flow of your money. It is not your money. And when we get into Choke Point 2.0, which is the next part of this that we're going to cover, you find out that it was targeted towards crypto in this last cycle.
Protect the big banks. And then this has been happening, by the way, also in legal fields of economic activity that they don't like. And so a lot of this started about 15 years ago with this thing called Operation Choke Point, where they decided to, as marijuana started to become legal, as prostitution started to become legal, and then guns, which there's always a fight about. Under the Obama administration, they started to debank legal marijuana businesses, escrow businesses, and then gun shops, like your gun manufacturers, and just like you're done, you're out of the banking system. And so if you're running a medical marijuana dispensary in 2012, guess what? You're doing your business all in cash because you literally can't get a bank account, you can't get a Visa terminal, you can't process transactions, you can't do payroll, you can't do direct deposit, you can't get insurance. Like none of that stuff is, you've been sanctioned, right? None of that stuff is available. And then this administration extended that concept to apply it to tech founders, crypto founders, and then just generally political opponents. So that's been like super pernicious.
I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, 100%. And this is called, so it was Operation Choke Point 1.0 was 15 years ago against the pot and the guns. Choke Point 2.0 is primarily against their political enemies and then to their disfavored tech startups. And it's hit the tech world. Like we've had like 30 founders debanked in the last 4 years.
Real?
Yeah. It's been a big recurring pattern.
30.
But this is one of the reasons why we ended up supporting Trump. It's like we can't live in this world. We can't live in a world where somebody starts a company that's a completely legal thing and then they literally get sanctioned, right, and embargoed by the United States government through a completely unaccountable, no due process. None of this is written down. There's no rules. There's no court. There's no decision process. There's no appeal. Who do you appeal to, right? Like who do you go to get your bank account back, right?
And that's exactly what leads me to how Bitcoin is financial freedom, because exactly what he's saying and what I experienced as well is if they decide to shut down your account, then yeah, there's no one to appeal to and they all work together. So if you're flagged by one bank, typically you're going to find it very, very difficult to get approved with another one. And that's again why Bitcoin is so important. Crypto is so important. This peer-to-peer trustless transaction system that allows you to pay for goods and services and not have to go through these middlemen that don't even have your money in their accounts and definitely don't have your best interest at heart. So this has been going around and getting, a lot of publicity. But I remember this during, the last cycle, like you mentioned, these tech startups and stuff. And I guess this kind of went under the radar, but Choke Point 2.0 was definitely alive and well in the last cycle. And that's exactly what was happening with a lot of this regulation by enforcement from the SEC, that you saw all these agencies, and that's what happened with BUSD, for example. Like all this stuff is what was really causing a issue in the crypto asset markets and the adoption. Is just because the last administration was just hammering it. all for their own personal gain. And that's why now we see that it's much more favorable. So, one, Bitcoin is financial freedom, digital sovereignty. And two, we have more favorable outlook going into this cycle. So this doesn't mean that in the future, something from this still can't be advertently applied, but at least now you have the opportunity to positively interact with it and potentially gain from this cycle and set yourself up. So the main TLDR is, you should be stacking sats in this cycle and then seeing behind the scenes how these banks operate, how the entire financial system is stacked against you if you're not one of the insiders. And even this clip from Brian Armstrong, where he's the CEO of Coinbase, he was talking about some of the same issues, and they're still trying to collect Freedom of Information Act requests to find out what exactly happened and how Warren and Gensler tried to unlawfully kill the entire industry. So there's still a lot of unknown unknowns, and maybe some of this information will come to light with this current administration, or new administration coming in, I should say. But again, the TLDR is you need to be focused on stacking sats and accumulating Bitcoin at all costs, because you can take that with you no matter where you go, and no one can take that from you. Focus on the self-custody aspect of it. Do not keep Bitcoin on exchanges. Do not trust contracts or platforms. I would even go as far as to say, watch out for even the ones that are legit, like PancakeSwap or Uniswap. If you're, putting Bitcoin on those platforms, who knows what can happen. So the main thing is self-custody, cold storage. And if you want to gamble, you can put some of it on the different platforms. And even again, I'm a big proponent of Drip to BTC because I work with the developer and the rest of the team. But still, you want to ensure that you control the bulk of your Bitcoin. Do not leave that up to someone else. And as we move further into this adoption cycle and Bitcoin gets more and more diversified across the globe, there may come a time, aside from right now over in El Salvador, where you can transact in Bitcoin, So that means you're taking out all the middlemen. You don't have to worry about any banks. And there will come a time where this thing is not as volatile once more and more money is put into this. And at that stage, you'll be able to literally pay in sats. And that's the goal. So keep that in mind. Always look behind the curtain and see what strings are being puppeteered and how that can and will affect you, especially when it comes to your financial freedom. All right, that's all I got. Smash that HBO special, help a brother out, like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, lift daily and achieve your impossible. See ya. Want to pay your in real life bills with crypto? How about send crypto directly to anyone with a bank account? Spritz Finance is a decentralized solution to be your own bank and connect your crypto earnings to real-world bills and payments. They do not take custody of your assets and allow support on multiple blockchains and Web3 wallets. Sign up below using my referral link and you will get $50 back when you make your first $50 bill payment with crypto. Additionally, I will be using referral bonuses to airdrop, donate, or burn based on community feedback. Sign up now